level, some of the old problems remained.
I can remember when we used to go out to play with Phillips Oilers, and all of a sudden we found out that Phillips were great hosts, but don't try to go anywhere else in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. John understood. We were the naive people. We didn't know what was going on. I mean, I grew up in Cleveland. I'd never experienced anything like that.
But while the players may have changed and the level of play was different, the results remained the same. In his second season, John coached the Pipers to the Eastern Division title and a victory in the championship game against the Denver Truckers. Originally, the championship was to be a best 2 out of 3 series, but late in the season, the Pipers had a change of ownership, and the new owner was
George Steinbrenner. He bought the team from Sweeney. I tell you, things were different, let's say, because we were planning on a 2 out of 3 championship, and one of the first moves George made was an economic move, which was, why play 2 out of 3? Why not just play winner take all? One game winner take all. That sounded good on paper, except that we were shipped off to Denver to play for the championship. We didn't appreciate that. The whole team didn't. This is our strongest adversary.
Even with the championship trophy in hand, the season wasn't over for John and the Pipers. Within a couple of weeks, they were playing in the National AAU tournament. But again, the new ownership decided to step in.
We had won 3 games and had one more game to go. And we were back in Denver for the national championship. And we got the word that our expense account had been cut off, and that the directors, that's what we were told, the directors back in Cleveland said that we should drop out of the tournament and come back. We won 3 games at this point. We had a meeting with the team, and they said, well, we're going to stay here whether we got any jobs when we get back or not. We got a chance to win this thing.
As John would later say, it took a miracle to keep the team in the tournament. That miracle appeared in the form of a friendly Denver banker who gave the team the $722 it needed.
We still stayed at the Y the rest of the week. We went ahead and won the tournament through just unbelievable odds.
There was still more basketball to be played, this time against the 1960 Olympic team.
Which up until the Dream Team arrived, it was claimed the best team ever to represent the United States. We played them in Canton, Ohio before 9,000.
It was a particularly sweet victory for John, considering who was playing on the Olympic team.
Jerry Lucas, Walter Bellamy, Dishinger, Jerry West, Oscar Robertson.
It would be the only loss the Olympians would experience in 1960. As fate would have it, however, John would be coaching many of those same Olympic players. By virtue of his AAU championship, John was named coach of a team for an unprecedented tour of Russia. Back home, however, things were beginning to change for the Industrial League, the Pipers, and ultimately for John.
Yeah, Abe Saperstein decided he wanted to start a second league to compete with the NBA.
In 1961, and when the team in the American Basketball League, Cleveland Pipers, became a part of the new professional league.
Before the first American Basketball League season even started, there were signs that the relationship between John and George Steinbrenner was not going to be smooth.
But George did say that he, in consideration of the team coach, I might not be in the mix because I wasn't in Cleveland during the summertime. On the other hand, John Nagy eliminated that excuse by calling me down to City Hall and saying, you need a job for the summer so you can stay here. And that's why I visited all the playgrounds in Greater Cleveland, teaching basketball to little kids in the afternoons. Had a good time doing it, too. So finally, he signed me up.
Playing a split season, the Pipers won the first half Eastern Division title, but lost the championship to Chicago. When the players didn't get paid, John decided to quit.
I always looked at Steinbrenner as a young guy with great ambition, and he just had inexperience in how to fulfill it when it came to dealing with people. I didn't ever get angry with him. He was almost amusing at times.
The American Basketball League folded after its first year.
Right at that time, the State Department asked me would I go to Malaya for them because they wanted to make friends with some country in Southeast Asia. And would I go over there and teach basketball to their coaches?
After Malaya, John returned to Tennessee State, but not as coach. He then returned to coaching at Kentucky State until 1966. That's when John received yet another history-making call from Cleveland. Before 1966, the little school in the middle of Cleveland was known as Penn College. But now it had a new name, Cleveland State University. And its president, Harold Enerson, wanted a new image for its athletic program.
When he became president, he became aware of the fact that there were not any black coaches in any of the institutions in the United States, except in historically black colleges and universities. He said that this must end. I just can't believe this has gone on like this long, and it ends right here, if you would take the job.
John did take the job and helped move CSU into a bigger division and a tougher schedule of opponents.
I enjoyed Cleveland State because the first year it took a great effort with the tremendous help of Jim Rodriguez to teach the team that they couldn't win. That was one of our biggest obstacles. They just had never considered winning. But I had some very fine guys. They were just tremendously responsive to our program.
During his 3 years at CSU, John gained his 500th coaching victory. He also was ready to take a chance on a skinny high school player from Long Island named Julius Irving.
One of the other kids who was attending Cleveland State was to show me around, and John gave him one of his business cards, and it had Coach John McLendon on it. And everywhere that I went with this kid, he would show the business card. And whenever he showed the business card, things changed. Things changed, and at the tender age of 17, I began to realize that I was dealing with somebody special who had, a very special relationship with a lot of people, just represented class.
While Julius Irving eventually decided to attend the University of Massachusetts, he never forgot the quiet little coach with class. From his CSU base, John in 1967 became the first USA coach to win an international championship, the World Championship for players under 6 feet. John also became a member of the U.S. Olympic coaching staff in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico. He was also the official scout for head coach Henry Iba from 1964 to 1972. In 1969, John decided to leave Cleveland State for another shot at the pros, this time with the Denver Rockets in the American Basketball Association. But a difficult early season schedule made John begin to regret that decision.
I think I won 9 games. lost 19. We got in quite an argument, difference in philosophy. I noticed the last coach that left Denver, he left because of philosophical differences. So that's what we left. I left it because of philosophical differences.
But once again, John's friendly encounters with fate found him in the right place at the right time. Converse Shoes wanted him to be a roving goodwill ambassador for both the company and basketball.
We want you to do whatever you feel is best for the game of basketball, which at the same time is good for Converse. In this country or anywhere in the world, traveled to 5 continents, gave basketball clinics all over the world.
The downside was that the job meant John McLendon, after 34 years, was no longer coaching. But John was only leaving coaching. He would never leave the game itself. And in the next 20 years, John would realize that the game was finally prepared to recognize his achievements. In 1992, retired NBA superstars Julius Erving and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played each other in a special one-on-one exhibition called the Clash of the Legends. On the bench, serving as Dr. J's coach, is John McLendon.
And I called up Coach McLendon and asked him to come and, be there for me. And we sat around for a couple hours and we, strategized before. And I just really wanted him, to be there and be a part of it and be on, sitting on my side. And that's part of what his availability is all about.
It is one of his most endearing qualities that John McLendon continues to make himself available. But he continues to bring more than just the philosophy of a Hall of Fame coach. He is a link to the past.
To clarify the performance goals of individual defensive play, Coach John McLendon, one of the winningest coaches of the game, developed a method of measuring defense for the benefit of both the player and the coach.
His coaching techniques will be long remembered thanks to his books and even the series of training films he has produced.
Good mobility. And he must be able to...
His legacy will continue thanks largely to one of the proudest days in John McLendon's life, his induction into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame.
Well, I think that John McLendon's legacy should continue on it because, see, John McLendon and many of the coaches that coached during his era really made it possible for the rest of us. And we can't forget that.
Possibly as important as his Hall of Fame selection was his part in the August 1994 dedication of the Naismith Memorial at the University of Kansas. 7 benches surround the statue of Dr. Naismith, and each contains a name. One bench bears the name of John McLendon.
Thank you.
After 20 years with Converse, John retired from the company. His wife, Joanna, also retired from teaching at about the same time. Her desire was to return to her hometown of Cleveland. It wasn't long, however, before he found his way back to Cleveland State University and was invited to join the athletic department staff. He also teaches a course on the role of minority athletes in American history.
He's meant a great deal to the game overall. He was the benchmark. Other people were measured. He was their Jackie Robinson.
In the meantime, I ran across a young lady that didn't know who Jackie Robinson was. She came over and said, I understand that you're sometimes referred to as the Jackie Robinson of basketball. And I said, it's rather flattering. I don't know whether I can accept that title. She said, tell me something. Who is Jackie Robinson?
That question is what led John to become a teacher at CSU.
How could you let students get out of the school without knowing just something about African Americans' performance in sports? Because that's one of the biggest things going on in all of our lives.
So the circle is complete. The student has become the teacher. And while the honors and adulation continue to pour in, John also knows his personal circle was complete nearly 40 years ago.
When we won the first championship in Kansas City, now this is 1957, this is years and years later, Dad shook my hand, gave me a pat on the back, said, "Nice going, son." My mother, she gave me a big hug and said, "I still have my doubts about anybody that'll give his life to what 5 people do with a ball." So she never did quite give up.
And if there is one common thread among all the people who help tell the story of a man who truly is in a league of his own, it is that each says his or her life is better for having known John McLendon. But John knows where the real credit belongs.
I have a strong religious belief in the Almighty. I think he's been in my corner a lot of times. He's been in other guys' corner too, but he's been in mine plenty. So I don't believe any of the achievements I could have had if I didn't realize that was a part of it. I know it's a part of it.